Bud, the question that remains is Jeremiah Smith the best receiver in college football? And is he having the best freshman year of all time in college football? Both of those high praise, and you get a pretty good idea of how dynamic this kid is. But now the world has seen him, not to mention he's playing for the biggest brand in all of sports here. But what he did over the weekend against Tennessee, Bud, I mean, you think he's in the mix here?
I think he is, Coop, because he continues to get better as the season has worn on. Like, obviously, the numbers don't match up to, like, Mike Williams or like maybe what Crabtree did at Texas Tech as a freshman. But ultimately, like, the impacts he's having in some of these biggest games is really, really pretty special. And honestly, like, if he doesn't get that kind of sketchy PI call against Oregon, like, we might be talking to Ohio State as, like the Big Ten champion, right? So he torched Tennessee in that game. Chip Kelly did a masterful job to correctly guess how Tennessee would treat the H-back with some of their coverage rules. And he just like, okay, cool. We're going to get Jeremiah Smith on like the weaker corner a couple times. We're going to get him on the safety one time. And he just ate him. And it was great to see. Now, can we put him in that like Herschel Walker, Adrian Peterson pantheon? I don't know. But like if he does this 2 more playoff games in a row, Coop, I don't think we're going to have much of a choice but to do so, right?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting when you ask that question. I was excited to kind of dig in, and some of the names that you hear: Herschel Walker, Adrian Peterson, Ron Dane, his freshman year in 1996 at Wisconsin. I was 4 years old. Maurice Clarett, another Buckeye. Sammy Watkins. When you start thinking about receivers, you think about the year that he had: 82 receptions, over 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, and a kickoff return. There's some guys that have done some things. Mike Williams, USC. Myles Garrett, 11 and a half sacks as a freshman at Texas A&M. You mentioned Trevor Lawrence, Michael Crabtree, and Brock Bowers. So, yeah, he is up against some stiff competition now, but can you put him in that conversation? Absolutely. But here's the other part of it that I think is interesting. This is a guy that has been dealing with a lot of hype for quite some time. You go back when we made him number one in the rankings just over a year ago. I want to ask you, because you live in Florida, you've seen a lot of this guy along with Andrew Ivins, our director of scouting. When did you know that this guy was a little bit a cut above everybody else? Like, when did it really sink in for you that this guy might be able to do some of the things that he's doing from a very early age now that we're seeing with Ohio State?
Sure. So I live here in Florida. I was shooting some TikToks for the CBS Sports and Cover 3 TikTok channels, and I was trying to get one of Jeremiah. And he plays on South Florida Express for the 7 on, and I was talking to his coach, Brett. And I was like, dude, like, I know you guys ain't been throwing the ball. You're trying to kind of showcase other guys. Like, I got to get out of here. Can you please throw the ball to Jeremiah? He's like, gotcha, man. Don't worry. So every ball that drive, 4 catches went to Jeremiah, and he torched a Clemson kid who was a senior at the time, so a year older than him, who at the time made it a 5-star. I'm not going to name the kid, but he still finishes a 4-star. Destroyed him, like different routes showing different abilities. I was like, okay, I've got my TikTok on one drive. This is extremely like convenient for me. I can hit the car and I actually go home and see the fam. But Coop, for me, that was it. It was like before his junior year when I was like, guys, that's different. Like, we're talking about Brandon Ennis, we're talking about Cornell Tate, and all these guys who are already committed to Ohio State. But this kid, I think, is better, and he's a year younger. So that was it for me.
I remember really liking him as a junior going into his senior season, and Andrew Ivins had started the conversation about, hey, I really think that this guy has a chance to be number one. And he threw around a Calvin Johnson comp, which at the time I thought was, anytime you're having a 17-year-old comp to one of the best receivers of all time and a guy that has a gold jacket, you're a little bit hesitant, right? And then as a senior, Andrew always goes back to this game. I remember watching this game and thinking, wow, this is kind of what did it for me. But that game against Bergen Catholic that he had 17 receptions, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns against a really legit team there in New Jersey. You watch him play that game, and it wasn't just gimme plays. I mean, he beat you in so many different ways, and that's the thing with Jeremiah Smith. He can beat you at the catch point. He can beat you right off the line of scrimmage. I think he's one of the best run-after-catch threats in the country as well. He is a special, special kid. And here's the other thing that I want to talk about. with Jeremiah Smith that we don't talk about often enough. He went to the All American Bowl. He did not have to do that. And you talk about a guy that is just wired the right way from a competitive standpoint, not only the competitive temperament, but the humility as well, to be able to follow in the footsteps of all those great receivers that have come out of Ohio State. I mean, you think about all those guys, Marvin Harrison Jr., you think about Chris Olave, just in recent history, the type of players that they have. He is going to be the best receiver that has ever played at Ohio State. And we know that, all the way through his freshman year, just what he's done. It's pretty special. And you got hints along the way. I mean, obviously, the flashes of talent, not even flashes, the consistent production at a high level. He kind of took the decision out of our hands. But once you got around him from a personality standpoint, you knew he was going to be special. And I'll say this. I watched Marvin Harrison Jr. coming out of high school. You watch him in college. That guy was a top 5 pick. Jeremiah Smith can be, without a doubt, Todd McShay said it, the number one receiver taken. He'd be the number one receiver taken this year. And like I said, you got guys like Tedero McMillan and Luther Burden out there, not to mention Travis Hunter as well. So that says a lot about Jeremiah Smith and the type of special talent, unique talent that is there in Columbus.